From the beginning of Stone Age, the world's most decorated scientists from all over the globe tried to wrap their heads around one single question in life. What's the perfect base layout in Terraria? Years should pass, tides shape Mother Earth, and humans evolved from pre-hard mode to hard mode. But that single question remained unsolved. However, the waiting comes to an end, because somewhere hidden deep in a basement with no windows and no sunlight, someone found the right mixture of materials, chests and crafting stations to make the life for every Terrarian out there more comfortable. No, seriously, let's get started. What matters for everyone is to make it comfortable. Running from one disconnected chest to another just to find a bunch of random materials eventually gets exhausting the more you play, and it really makes a difference if we start right ahead with a good layout in mind to prevent this from happening. It must be comfortable. Chests should be in range of crafting stations, and our crafting area shouldn't be too big or too disconnected from storages. The goal is to create a base where we reach everything and be able to craft everything within a few steps. We try to cover as much crafting stations as possible within a small space, and on top of it make the base secure to stop your foes like zombies at night or cute little slimes at daytime. It's important that the whole layout can be built with early game materials. In fact, everything it needs is materials we can farm before we defeat our first boss, and add crafting stations as we progress. But without further ado, let's jump into building the base layout. If we're going to rebuild the layout, we start with a simple stone box, 30 blocks wide and 14 blocks high. Add doors to both sides and build platforms exactly in front of the door to prevent zombies from breaking in. Once we have that, build a crafting table in the middle on the platform. Another 2 platforms on top of it to add the anvil. This way we use very little space for the most important and perhaps most used crafting station. To add more space for more crafting stations, we add 3 platforms to each side of the crafting table. This space should be used for the bigger, frequently used crafting stations. Personally, I use the saw and mason a lot, but the furnace overall makes more sense as you always need it when you progress. Now you could also leave out the 3 platforms on each side of the crafting table and don't elevate the crafting stations. I like to do it so we create a little arc with the crafting stations visually, and it becomes a bit more pleasing for the eyes. We add another row of platforms 5 blocks above our first row. Make them just as long as our first crafting stations are and add 5 chests on top of them. Add stone blocks to both sides until you hit the walls, and as a personal recommendation, add a second layer of stone to make the base a bit more solid. We get into more decorating tips later on. With the platforms and blocks, we now have a comfortable time covering the base with walls. In this example, we take simple wood walls. Once everything is covered, we add 6 chests below our crafting stations, add the first torches and use the top corners for our bed and a space for 1 NPC, where I always recommend the nurse. However, when you didn't play for a while or being new, you may want to add the guide instead, as he's basically an in-game Wikipedia for crafting. We get some more torches in and start to organize our base with item frames. 2 blocks below the bottom chest we clear out space for the frames. Once it's done, we add them underneath the bottom and above the upper chest. We now have a solid base made out of materials you potentially get before the first night. The chest we added so far should be used for materials and other blocks and items used for crafting frequently, and leave chests for weapons, equipment and so on open for the extension. From now on, you just need to open a chest and do a few steps from one crafting station to another to craft whatever you desire. Every chest is accessible from every crafting station added so far and vice versa. For now, we still have plenty of space to add additions as we progress, like the extractor or whatever you find in use. Before we get into the defense and decorations, we continue with the expansion. We start by replacing the bottom row of blocks with platforms and dig a 15 blocks deep basement with the same width as our base. We make another row of platforms starting exactly underneath the item frames and repeat it with a 2 block spacing. Place a row of chests on each side and label them again with frames, just like we did before. For our last row of platforms, we start 2 blocks below the youngest added item frames and add chests on top of it, and label them. And then cover it with walls and add some more torches. Now it's up to everyone how to organize our items. I use the left side usually for accessories, from which I craft better later on, like requirements for the cell phone, for boots, for the Ankh shield and so on. The right side is good for adventure items such as explosive, ropes, torches and projectiles. The lower chests are reserved for crafting items and weapons you want to keep for crafting. I also store my decorational items here, such as walls and furniture. For armors, I simply place mannequins next to the chest, but if you are into collecting things, you can expand the base either up or downwards anytime you feel like it. In the middle we prepare the entrance for our elevator. Make sure you place a single stone platform next to the rope so you can smoothly walk over it. Now we eventually surround your basement with stone blocks to give it a slightly better look. Once this is done, it's time for our defense. For that we start by placing 6 stone blocks above our doors and 1 on top of each end, so we end up with 5 blocks space in between. This can be somewhat important because eyeballs bounce back exactly 3 to 4 blocks from the walls. With a 5 block wide lava pool we make sure they drop in there more consistently. For the second part of our little defense system we build trapdoors exactly in front of our entrance and dig out some blocks below it. Now it's up to everyone how they want to fill it with lava. When you just use a single bucket and the thin layer, items may remain in the traps, but will crumble your inventory eventually every time you pass there. When you use more lava, items will burn in the traps instead. And that's pretty much it for the functional part of the base. From now on you add more as you progress, such as weapon and passive buffs like the heart lamp and different statues that provide useful buffs. With a fully functional base we can now get into decorations. Even if I won't dive too deep into it and recommend my other tutorials for it, I have some little tricks to upgrade the look within seconds. We could, for example, replace some bricks by simple stone blocks to give our walls somewhat like a weathered look. After that you may place any kind of fence as some sort of pillar at your entrance. Personally I love to sprinkle grey painted palladium blocks on the outside to give it a bit more brick-like shape. If you want to dive a bit deeper into decorating, you will find some tutorials on my page here for some inspiration, with more to follow. So for now, I hope you could learn something and enjoy your day. Make sure to subscribe for more, thank you for watching and see you next time.